Acha, I had committed to you guys that we talk about pricing. Now, the one thing that a monopolist has that no other market structure, so to speak, मतलब no other market structures में ऐसे कह रही हूँ जैसे पता नहीं कितने market structures हैं. So perfectly competitive doesn't have it. Monopolistically competitive also does not have it in terms of pricing. Is that a monopolist can indulge in something that we refer to as price discrimination. डिस्क्रिमिनेशन का जो वर्ड है वो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है. डिस्क्रिमिनेशन का मतलब है कि मैं दो चीज़ों के बीच में फ़र्क ला रही हूँ, दो कस्टमर्स बेसिस के बीच में फ़र्क ला रही हूँ. आई एम deciding that I can charge a different price to a different consumer, or I can charge a different price for a separate bundle at a separate price at a separate time maybe. ठीक है. In your kitab, in your book Pindic, it's very clearly given that there are three types of price discrimination that a monopolist can indulge in. Now, in some textbooks, these 1, 2 price discrimination, 1 price discrimination, 2, second degree price discrimination, first degree price discrimination, third degree price discrimination, ये interchangeably use हो रहे हैं. लेकिन आज मैं अगर बता रही हूँ तो मैं इसको 3 parts में बताऊंगी. And again, don't get confused by कि ओ मेरा वाला जो third degree price discrimination है वो book में second degree लिखा हुआ है, book में जो है वो second degree वाला third degree है. So please you understand what I'm saying. Just get the concept right. Okay, so please understand that a monopolist is able to partake in something called price discrimination. Why? Because he is a price maker, so to speak. And इसमें हमने उस दिन बड़ी clearly establish कर लिया था कि it doesn't mean that he's the end all and be all in terms of all decisions. He can either control pricing or he can either control quantity. So given the limitation that this particular monopolist has, and given the inelastic demand curve that the monopolist holds, and given the fact that he has market power, therefore he is able to charge P greater than MC, a monopolist does something called price discrimination. ठीक है. It does not charge a uniform price for everything at any given time. तो वो तो एक तो ये है ना कि आप अपने डिमांड कर्व पे नीचे आ रहे हो, तो आप जैसे इससे ज़्यादा करना चाह रहे हो अपनी क्वांटिटी, तो आप प्राइस गिरा रहे हो. और एक है कि आप अपनी प्राइस बढ़ा के टोटल रेवेन्यू उस तरह से बढ़ा रहे हो कि आप अपनी प्राइस बढ़ा रहे हो लेकिन आप अपनी क्वांटिटी गिरा रहे हो, लेकिन आपका क्योंकि इनइलास्टिक पोर्शन पे आप आते जा रहे हो तो आपका टोटल रेवेन्यू बढ़ेगा. बट what price discrimination is charging different people a different price at different times at different points in a particular demand curve. ठीक है. Okay, before we launch into price discrimination की types, please understand that a monopolist can only price discriminate under the following circumstances. Book में मेरे ख्याल से बड़े clearly लिखे हुए conditions which are absolutely necessary for price discrimination. And you go and please refer to the book after this, but what I'm trying to tell you is कि सबसे पहले तो remember that a monopolist for all intents and purposes should be a price maker at that time. It cannot be कि that monopolist does not have any power, or that particular producer does not have any market power and he is charging P is greater than MC, P is equal to MC, and then he decides कि मैं price discrimination करता हूँ. तो no, people, if he's charging a lower price to a certain consumer, then all the consumers will flock towards that segment. So clearly ये तो बिल्कुल ही मैंने इसलिए इतनी ridiculous बात की है क्योंकि आपको मैं बताना चाह रही हूँ कि इतना ridiculous concept है कि अगर आप एक perfectly competitive market में हो या आप एक ऐसी मार्केट में हो जहाँ आपकी चीज़ों के क्लोज सब्सटीट्यूट्स अवेलेबल हैं, वहाँ पे आप प्राइस डिस्क्रिमिनेट इसलिए नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि अगर आप प्राइस डिस्क्रिमिनेट करोगे और अगर आप थोड़े से लोगों को यू चार्ज देम अ हायर प्राइस, then all the consumers will move to that to the lower market or to another product altogether, okay, which is there because that's the nature of that the demand curve. The nature of that market is such that there is availability of substitutes. So and by the way, please understand that availability of substitutes is also a function of that moment in time, so to speak. So as I use the example of our tattoo business a lot, I'm going to use it here also. Clearly, we're not the only tattoo artists in Lahore right now, but given the fact that वो कोई 4-5 ticks हो रहे हैं माशाल्लाह, for whatever reason, we've managed to set ourselves apart, and therefore, I mean, we're playing in a market in which we are the only people right now, and therefore we do something called price discrimination, and I'll just talk about it कि हम उसको किस form में करते हैं. तो I'm not saying that यहाँ आके ख़त्म हो गई है, because clearly मतलब ये वही बात है ना कि यार suppose you want to go take somebody out for a really nice meal, and this is also a very subjective concept because a lot of us, one of my sort of favorite meals has actually been bhajje ke pie near ye purane Lahore mein. So clearly it's not a function of money or exclusiveness or oh, can you get a table there, but uh, let's assume that it is a function of ke ji, okay, the sushi market. Sushi as a, I mean, it's all food, isn't it? I mean, food should compete with other food, but no, it doesn't. Sushi doesn't compete with anything. Sushi is just sushi on its own, and it has an अपनी उसकी niche market है, अपना उसका mark. I mean, their pricing definitely cost plus pricing, but then the rest of it is all demand curve based. तो एक तो ये हो गया. तो monopolist जो है clearly has to be somebody who can charge P's greater than MC. Secondly, there can be no, the markets need to be segmented. Segmented का मतलब ये हुआ कि ऐसे नहीं हो सकता. हमने एक रूल बनाया हुआ है कि हम FC के बच्चों को, and mind you, after you guys graduate, you will have this offer. I graduate from my 2 semesters. You will have this opportunity that you can get a tattoo from us and you'll get a 10% discount. ठीक है? So it cannot be that one of you gets the tattoo and then you sell it off to somebody else. So it's not like a piece of bread, or it's not like a voucher, so to speak, that you can get it and then you can pass it on to somebody for the small amount of वो जो बीच में incremental spread है उसकी price के लिए. ठीक है ना? तो clearly अगर आप चाहते हो कि आप इस कस्टमर को और इस कस्टमर को और इस मार्केट को और इस मार्केट को डिफरेंट प्राइस चार्ज करो, तो यू नीड टू हैव दीज मार्केट्स नीड टू बी सेगमेंटेड, वेदर बाय ज्योग्राफी, वेदर बाय सर्कमस्टांस, वेदर बाय virtue of their beings, or whether by the nature of the product or the good. Like you can't give another haircut to somebody if you've gotten a discounted haircut. You can't go and give it off or gift it off to somebody by just saying कि अच्छा तुम इतना मुझे दे दो तो मुझे इतना फ़ायदा हो जाएगा. ठीक है ना? So एक तो ये हो गया. Third, remember, you have to have different willingnesses. Willingnesses is the right, no, that's not the right word. The willingness to pay for different consumers needs to be different. So the reason why we can partake in price discrimination is because there is a very steep curve and then there is a very elastic curve, or a fairly elastic curve relative to the original steep curve. तो फिर आपके पास एक ऐसी चीज़ आ जाती है जिसमें हम बात करते हैं कि हाँ, एक ही जगह पे आप प्राइस डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, एक ही प्रोडक्ट की आप उसको दे सकते हैं. केस इन पॉइंट कैन बी, we've talked about it in class also, and this is not a monopolist, but this is a price it is a price discriminating practice that does take place. So we talked about, I think, Veranda Bistro, कि उनका जो डिनर का मेन्यू है वो जो उनका था वो, I think that was when back when I know it as, I think वो 2000 पर हेड हो गया था. बट जो उनका हाई टी का मेन्यू था, which was catering to a different segment altogether, that was something like 800 के करीब मेरे ख्याल से, very affordable. So I know that a lot of students and a lot of people, who want to kind of, ये committee parties और ये वो, people would go there. But dinner was a very exclusive time and it was a very sort of quiet time and a very lovely time actually to go there. Just like अगर आप सिनेमा में देखते हो तो मैटिने शोज़ जो हैं वो बहुत सस्ते टिकट्स के होने चाहिए. एक्चुअली होने चाहिए, पाकिस्तान में इतनी ये नहीं यूज़ कर रहे, बट दे डू गिव अ डिस्काउंट टू स्टूडेंट्स. Which basically means you give a student card, आप अपना दिखाते हो. क्लियरली उस टाइम पे ऑफिस का क्राउड तो नहीं आके मूवी देख रहा होगा, तो इसलिए उन्होंने क्या किया है कि उन्होंने एक मूवी ख़रीद ली है, उनका सिनेमा भी चल रहा है, उनका सब कुछ चल रहा है. जब वो अपनी वेरिएबल कॉस्ट कवर कर लेते हैं, वो अपनी फिक्स कॉस्ट को ज़्यादा उसको स्प्रेड करने के लिए वो इस टाइम पे उसको रन कर रहे हैं, और उससे फिर उसको सस्ता टिकट बेच के उन लोगों को भी मार्केट की तरफ ल्योर कर रहे हैं जो कि रेगुलर प्राइसेस, जो मोनोपोली प्राइसेस थी, उस पर वो नहीं आ रहे थे. अच्छा, another very interesting thing about price discrimination is, and this I think is the most pertinent point, because a lot of businesses, and since you guys will inshallah undertake these practices in your lives also, and this is something I've also had to internalize for our business, is that the price discriminating practice should not cost you. ठीक है ना? So it shouldn't be that just because इस वाले सेगमेंट को दिखाने के लिए मूवी जो कि स्टूडेंट्स का था, या स्टूडेंट्स को हाई टी कराने के लिए, या वो जो आफ्टरनून वाले सेगमेंट को आपने अकोमोडेट करना है, उससे रेवेन्यू कमाने के लिए इट कैन नॉट बी दैट आइदर इट इज़ कॉस्टिंग यू एक्स्ट्रा इन टर्म्स ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल, इन टर्म्स ऑफ टाइम, इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिटीरियोरेशन, इन टर्म्स ऑफ योर स्टाफ, एंड आपका वो एक्स्ट्रा नहीं हो रहा, नंबर वन. Number two, it cannot eat into your ideology which was your initial that exclusiveness के पर लोग पता चले शाम में भी बरांडा बीच आना बंद करते हैं कि नहीं यार इधर तो it's just such a बच्चा and sort of again since this is going on record something like मेला crowd आता है. So, but do you get what I'm saying? That we do not want that the main aim of the monopolist, which is to charge a supernormal profit, which is to enjoy a supernormal profit by charging P greater than MC, gets disrupted by these practices of price discrimination. So, not in all circumstances is it beneficial for the monopolist to price discriminate by doing something which we call third degree price discrimination. Okay? I'm going to pause there. I'm going to come back to another video and then we'll talk about the types of price discrimination.